My name is Roger Howard. I was born in the little town of Clemmy, Iowa, in a house that my father built himself during the Depression. Then later we moved to a farm for most of my younger years.
I'm Wilhelmine Howard, and my maiden name was Schultz, and I was born in Vienna, Austria. Well, I was born in 1937, and I remember that, of course, I think World War II started then, so I grew up during the war.
Yes, I had three brothers, one older than me, 4 years older, Melvin, and two younger. Homer was 4 years younger, and then I had a younger brother who was 5 years younger than him. His name was Raymond. We had a pretty normal life, went to country school. The school had just one big room. It had all 8 grades there and one teacher teaching them all. And I graduated from Clemmy High School in 1952. I did play some basketball, a little bit of baseball. My father went into farming after he and my mother married, and like everyone else, financed about everything that they had. The Depression hit, and they lost everything that they had. So he went into the little town of Clemmy and started a shop of repairing shoes and repairing horse harness. And it was a form of existence. I remember we moved into a house that was newly built, didn't have running water, didn't have an inside toilet or anything the first winter, but it was a good life. I liked being on the farm. I liked working with the farm animals. Yeah, we had row crops, several tractors. I spent a lot of hours riding the tractors and working in the fields. Lots of chores to keep those 4 boys busy, you know.
Well, my mother was, her name was Hilda also, and my dad's name was Joseph. And they grew up, well, in Pertersdorf, that was a suburb. He grew up there in a suburb of Vienna. And my mother, she lived in Vienna with her parents. And they got married, and they had my sister, and then I came along 2.5 years later. And my dad was a baker. His dad had a bakery, and then in 1938 he had to go to the military. And that's all he did then, until he did not come back from the war. He was first missing, and then finally they did say that he died in northern Germany, close to Russia or something. It was the end of the war, actually, when he died, you know. So that's all we heard. And then my mother, she was a nurse before she got married, but during her marriage, it was a law that a married couple, the wife couldn't work during Hitler's regime, and she stayed home with us, of course. And after the war, she had to go to work right away because there was no other means of supporting us, you know. I have an older sister. She's 2.5 years older than I am, and her name was Hilda. And we always played together. I learned English when I was 7 years old. They taught it in school. So I could read better than I can talk because we didn't communicate just with the English teacher, and that was it, you know. We did learn when the sirens went off, and they went off a lot in Germany, to hit the cellar, you know, the bomb shelters. They had bomb shelters. And that one time we were in Munich with my dad, took us to Munich, and the siren went off too, and they had a bombing, and we sat in the basement down there, and we could just shake it. And when we went up, the next door apartment building was all gone. It was just rubble. So we didn't like the cities that well. In the country, you didn't have that, much. That was one time, and I don't know which year it was, but I was old enough to remember it really good. And we got on there, and everybody was rushing to get a seat because seats, they were not assigned, So, but of course, the girls wanted to sit at a window. And it was in the evening. They always run the trains during the night. And that we both got a window seat. And the lady behind us somewhere, she said, "This is my seat. I was here first." So my mother didn't want to argue, imagine. She said, "Well, come on, girls. You had one. I have one window seat. That's fine. Let her have it." So we had one window seat. Well, while we were gone, the conductor came in and said that they're going to have an attack on the train, a strike or whatever they called it. And everybody just, make sure that the lights are out. No lights, they will be going out in the train too, so they can't see the train well, And we girls went under the seat. It was enough room for us to kind of duck in there, And it wasn't a bomb fell or an explosion, but they just shot it or something. But when we got up, then he said, "It's over, you guys, the lights come on." My mother was injured in her arm, and we didn't know how bad, but she was trying to get one of those turns to cut off, so it wouldn't bleed. And the conductor right away asked, "Is anybody hurt?" And she said, "Well, if you want to help me, just," and then look at the lady. She got up and looked at the lady and took her pulse, and she said, "Well, she's gone." And he said, "Bring a blanket and cover her up." So we had the train went on, it didn't stop. And I remember we had to look at that lady with but that's the only bad thing that I ever remember, seeing.
After having registered in the county for the draft, I put some thoughts together and decided, hey, I should just go and enlist. I was fond of the Air Force because my brother had served that way. My life was, from that time forward, was what it is today, really. Well, I was following my basic training, and after that I went to Scott Air Force Base outside of St. Louis, and went to a tech school for a number of months, learning things so that I could work in an office. And so I was a special clerk for Officer and Airman Records. Well, I had people on base that were friends, and one of them suggested to me we go for a ride and go to Munich, Germany, to go to the Botanical Gardens. Well, he was engaged to a girl from Germany there, and she knew friends that Wilma and her mother were staying with at the time on vacation. What a day. I didn't realize how my life was really, from then on, going to be changed, because it was just a date, but that was where the romance in our life started together.
So he had to come up, had to get him, and had to say, "My mom wants to meet you first. She won't let me go with anybody that I didn't know." So I brought him up, and those friends kind of liked him, and my mother kind of liked him too right away, and says, "Okay, but you have to be back, well, at a certain time." And then we got back from the Botanical Garden. He says, "Well, let's go to the movies on the base, And I said, "Well, I have to go ask my mother if I can go, She said, "Okay, but you have to be home at 10 o'clock. So that was our first date. In fact, that was the first English movie I saw.
Her kindness, I thought she was beautiful, as I do today. And I don't know, we just kind of hit it off. She spoke enough English and I had been taking some lessons in German on the base so we could communicate. She came back to visit me on my birthday and stuff, and we got better acquainted all the time.
I guess he was fun and friendly, and we just clicked it off. Was it Air Force Day or Armed Forces Day?
Armed Forces Day.
It was in May, I remember that, and we got engaged, and then in September we got married. So we knew each other for a year, and I thought that was good enough. It still is good enough.
She had me down, pounding on me, telling me I had to marry her. No, really. We went into Munich one Saturday and went to a store and bought us our engagement rings. The tradition over there was that you both get a ring when you get engaged, and you put it on your right hand, don't you, first, which indicates you're just engaged. But then when you get married, you move that to your left hand. And I put in the wedding application, or the marriage application, and it finally came back approved. They had very extensive checks. Austria was still under the control of the four powers that won the war. That's why there was such a rush. When I got the call in my office saying that the application was approved and ready for pickup, they said, but you have to do it by this date, which was less than a week away. I had to present evidence of having $300 to get married to my commander. And so I showed him the cash. He said, Howard, you shouldn't have sold your car. He said, I wouldn't have had to do that. But anyway, we made it over there.
So we went and had to pick up the papers that Monday in Austria. And then the next day, I called Mother and I said, well, I have to go to the consulate yet, the American consulate, to apply. I don't know, I had to take a physical. They needed a license from my part. He had all his papers, but now I had to do my paper that week. And Wednesday afternoon, after I had my physical at the consulate, they found out you can get married the next day at 2:00 on Thursday. Because when people get married every day, and you see it was easy, but they didn't know it was that much paperwork, and everything had to be just right, with the service. And so we didn't have a wedding dress. So on that Wednesday, when we found out in early afternoon, he had to go buy a suit quick. I had to buy a dress quick. So it was hectic. And then Thursday morning, I remember, got my hair fixed. And at 2:00, we had to hire a taxi and take us into the national section of Vienna, where he could get married.
We finally got the approval, and we got married in Vienna, Austria on September 1st, 1955.
We didn't know he had to have a service guy to stand up for him. That's who he had. And we met him at the place, and he told us that we were the last couple. He was leaving tomorrow, Friday. All the Americans had to be out of Austria. So we had to be on that train at 4:00 in the afternoon. And that Friday morning, I had to get up and pack my things, my clothes, go to the office where I change my passport, because I had an Austrian passport, and the name had to be changed. And then we had to rush at 4:00 and met my mother at the train station. I told her, be there before 4, because the train leaves at 4 at the train station. I would say it was a shotgun wedding.
Anyway, we went back to Fürstenfeldbruck, Germany, and had us a small cottage there we had rented. And I did get me a different car then right away. I don't want it to sound like it was all turmoil and trouble and unhappiness. We were happy. We were very happy to be married and looking forward to go ahead, in life together. It all worked out. Just a couple months after we got married, my organization, the Second Weather Wing, announced that they were going to move that wing up to northern Germany to a place called Bitburg. We hadn't really had a big honeymoon of any type, and so we talked it over and said, hey, let's take a week or two, and we went to Paris, Belgium, Brussels, Amsterdam. It was just a nice trip by automobile. Went back through Frankfurt, Germany, and then back to Bitburg. But not long after that, I started getting sick and ended up that I had contracted hepatitis, and a strong case of it, where I had to be hospitalized in isolation. Difficult, we went through, because Wilma didn't drive. She had to ride the bus, or walk to the base and come and see me, and couldn't come in the room. Had to sit at the door, all these kind of things, But she was pregnant. Finally, one day she said, today is going to be my day to have the baby. And I was shocked, because here I am in the hospital. I wasn't in isolation anymore, but anyway, she come in and we went over there to the delivery room and sat up all night and finally got our baby boy at 6:38 in the morning. I remember that. We named him Ralph Lynn.
Well, he was there. He was right there for the birth. Yeah, I was in the same hospital, just in another wing, see? But he didn't get to go home with me. I stayed there. They kept me a week, and then I went home. I just had to manage by myself, So, Better Homes and Gardens baby book helped me each step. But it wasn't bad, mother couldn't come. I couldn't even call her. I just wrote her a letter, I think we went home in September, and he met my grandfather. It was his only great-grandchild. And it was kind of nice. He passed away 2 months later, so it was nice that he got to hold them. We got pictures of that. And then we went on and came to the States,
They had set me up to come back, to set us up to come back by troop ship out of Bremerhaven up there, and which I dreaded the thought of. I said, oh man, that takes I don't know how many days on a troop ship, and the conditions I'd heard were marginal. Here I get a text, what we call a text now, from Bremerhaven saying, we're informing you that your ship going back to the States on such and such a date is in quarantine with a flu of some nature, and you'll be flying back to the States, commercial air from Frankfurt, with your wife and child on such and such a date. Hallelujah. It was just like a blessing in disguise, because that went real good. We flew back. Wilma had never been on a plane. This was funny at the time. It still is kind of funny, because after we got into the air, the pilot, of course, ascended to a higher level, and he announced on the intercom that when we attained a certain level, the engines would be throttled back momentarily to go forward. Well, I heard it, I know it. Well, when they cut those engines and the plane seemed to drop a little bit, Wilma screamed out, ah! She thought we were going down. And I looked at her like, what the heck is the matter, But
Well, it was, I guess when you're young, it's fun, just to see something else. And it never occurred to me that, it's that far away, the distance. But when we drove then from New York to Iowa, it was a long ways, And it was we always looked forward to it. We knew we had to move into housing, and I never was homesick because I didn't have time to think about it, and everything was fun, His parents were very, very nice to me, and they liked me because I had the same birthday as Roger's mother, so same day, so but they treated me well, so they were my second parents almost,
We liked Iowa City. Iowa City, we lived in student housing for several years, and it was, of course, a university community. I worked in a gas station for a while, close to a year probably, and then a friend recommended that I try Hy-Vee food stores for a job he was working there. And I started in with them and stuck with them then for my whole career, 32 years of working for Hy-Vee, and went from being a part-time employee at $1 an hour to retiring 32 years later in good shape.
Well, I worked for the university for about almost 2 years in the business office. I was an insurance clerk, and then we moved to Cedar Falls, and I didn't work until I helped out as a bookkeeper in the store just in the summertime. The only full-time job I had was with the university.
I've always enjoyed working with people, being around people. I was promoted to being assistant manager at a store in Cedar Falls, Iowa, back in '64. And after just a couple years, less than 3, I think, I was promoted to be a manager. I was very fortunate to get with a company that functioned the way they did. And I served on their board of directors 3 times over my years, and just became a good, strong part of the company. I had some good people, and good opportunities. Well, the hardest part for me was seeing Wilma leave her home the last time. But on the day that we left, we got in our car, and her mother was standing, by the gate and waving goodbye and crying because she knew she was seeing her daughter for maybe the last time. She didn't.
Because I didn't know when I was going to be back, And we didn't go back.
So I just promised myself that we're going to bring her overseas for a visit sometime.
In '63, she came over and stayed for us for 3 months in Iowa City. That's when Rob wasn't born yet. He was born afterwards. He was born in '65. First, I wrote letters, just told them what we were doing and everything. Everything was nice, here. I guess we just, I didn't call much because I think the first minute was $25. way back then, that was a lot of money. And every other minute, I think, was like $6 or $7. So when I did call, it was very fast. You know, you just want to say something. So I didn't call, I just wrote the letter, you know, we kept in contact.
I don't know as though we decided that we weren't going to have a second child, but we weren't in any hurry. And then finally, we decided he should have a brother. Ralph should, you know. Ralph was 7 years old, 9 years old, that's right, before Rob was born. Rob was a blessing to us. It was good for both of them to have a brother as they grew along through the years. And we're proud of both of them, proud of their families, and proud of the life that we were so much a part of.
He was always very conscious, you know, just trying to be always the best, you know, he can be. And he had some good friends, and when he was 16, he wanted to start working at the store. So that kept him busy.
He was a good student.
Yeah.
He was, took care of his things, took care of,
He was very particular.
yeah,
You know, just
helped around the place as was needed. Just a good kid.
well, Rob was pretty good, and he tried to follow him. You know how kids are; they want to always be with the other one, you know. And but he had his little friends too in the neighborhood we lived there, you know. He was just a good little guy. He got up real early in the morning every morning with Roger. Liked his bike. Always tried to help Roger. Watching what he was doing with the cars, you know.
The boys both really liked cars. They took after their dad there. They just liked their automobiles.
They went not every, but pretty much on Sundays sometimes go to the car lots and look at the cars. I didn't always go along.
Well, we took a year to just do some traveling and look around the country to see where we might want to live, you know, in our retirement. We had some ideas, ended up coming down to Texas. We've spent 31 years here now and been very happy. We've loved it here.
It was kind of different, you know, we had to adjust. The kids weren't there anymore.
We loved traveling,
We
and
enjoyed it.
we joined a travel club at the church.
Well, the most we enjoyed was Austria, I have to say that. And we did enjoy going to Australia and New Zealand.
Right? We enjoyed Hawaii.
That was nice.
There was so much to see there.
But most of the places we went spoke English. You know, of course, to overseas, I didn't have any problems when we went to Italy. I didn't, you know, have any knowledge of the language, and we got along fine anywhere. When we went to France,
Yeah.
Paris was beautiful. I like Norway real well. That's a
Norway,
beautiful-
Denmark, Sweden.
Sweden, yeah, they're beautiful countries. Nobody
Finland.
hears much about it. Going down vacation, you know, but we had lots of fun. We enjoyed it, you know. Of course, when Ralph got married and Cindy, they lived in Arizona, so we always go to between Arizona and between Rob and Laura's place, you know, had to see all the grandkids and the activities. They kept us busy going, you know, watching basketball playing. And Ralph's kids, they weren't much in sports, they were more in music. They, you know, so they had activities, you know, the Children's Symphony, or they called them. So we went and saw all that, so.
We really feel blessed that we have such an extended family that's doing well in their lives. Each of them are married, has married well, and have a good life, and we're real proud of that.
Het freut mich, Sie kennenzulernen. Von wo sind Sie? Ich war geboren in Österreich und ich spreche Deutsch. Nice to meet you. And I've noticed that. Are you from? Where are you from? And I was born in Austria and I speak German.
Of course, we learned all the basic things, and spoke German in the classes, of course. And so when I met Wilma, I could easily say, "Ich liebe dich," I love you. I think a basic feeling that we really have is that we're quite proud of our sons and the way that they have come through life raising their family and with good standards. But I would say to anyone that to try to raise their children right and to set an example that will prompt them to want to be like their parents and to remember their faith. I think that's very important too, because we've turned to that through our lifetime. We weren't always strongly religious, didn't always go to church like we should, but we have more as we got retired. And
we met a lot of good friends through the church.
And we wished we'd have been more active earlier, but I think God has forgiven us, and we're happy.